Okay.
This is my buddy Shadow, and in this video we're going to show you how you can condition your dog to be okay having their nails trimmed. Now Shadow here has translucent nails. If you have dogs that have black, usually black where the nail goes into the skin, a lot of times the nail will be black. A lot of people are fearful of trimming those because you can't see what the quick is. For him, if you want to kind of come in on his paw, you can see the pink part and then it goes to white. That white part is the nail you can trim off, but the closer you get to the pink, the more sensitive it's going to be. So usually you want to have about 1/8 of an inch gap between the end of the pink to where the white is. If you go into it too far, it will bleed, it will hurt him, and it'll make your dog less likely to want to want to do this exercise. Now when you're doing this exercise, it's crucially important we go at his pace and we watch for his cutoff signals. Cutoff signals for dogs doing this would be withdrawing their paw, turning away from us, baring its teeth and growling are pretty obvious cutoff signals. We don't want to get to those. So the instant I detect even a head leaning away, that tells me that that's too much criteria. Now we did this with Dad earlier, and Shadow is a little bit aloof with strangers, so this will be interesting to see how this one goes with me. I'm using a very high value treat here because Shadow is a little bit not as comfortable with me as is with Dad. So the training wheels version, I'm going to hold this to his lips, and he's going to try to take it. While he's watching me, I'm going to take one finger and just lightly touch his paw, and then give him and release the treat. This is the training wheels version. The training wheels version means holding it to his lips first. So I can go the training wheels version for any, and if he stops chewing it, I stop reaching for his paw. That's a cutoff signal. That's his way of saying that was too much for me. So to make it easier, whenever I get a cutoff signal, I ask myself, how can I make it easier? So the way I can make it easier, I do this and reach partially and pull my arm back. And I do it in his face so he gets to see what I'm doing. I'm not trying to sneak anything in. I want to be aware of the entire process. What we're just saying is when humans reach for your paw, you get a treat. So now I'm reaching like 95% of the way, and he didn't withdraw his paw. I'm earning his trust. So I'm holding it out again, I reach down, and I just gently, very gently touch. And so because he's so sensitive, I'm touching as light as I possibly can. And I'm using these really high value treats. There we go. A little bit of a cutoff signal, but not too bad because I'm proving to him that touching your paws is not a bad thing. I know, that was a little bit, and that one kind of got under his eyesight. Now, he's going to feel more comfortable doing this with his guardian than with me because they have an intimacy that I don't have with him. So I want to do all the digits. And so it doesn't have to be all in one sitting. And the main reason why people struggle with this one, at the end of this exercise, they always trim the nails. When you're doing this, you're going to do step by step without trimming the nails. The trimming the nails comes way at the end when he's completely relaxed. Now, when we started doing this video, before we did the video, we did this exercise off camera, and Shadow went from a sit into a down. Down is a very relaxed position. Hey, buddy. Yeah. You give me a little paw. That's a pretty good indicator that he feels pretty relaxed with the situation here. If your dog's getting up and moving away, that's a pretty clear indication they're uncomfortable with what you're doing. So we'll do this again, and I'll tap up. And so now, because he was in that position, he didn't feel secure. So I didn't release the treat. He didn't do anything wrong, but probably having him on his side is a little bit much for this exercise. So I'll go here, and again, just touch the tip of the nail. So since he's already given me cutoff signals here, I'm not going to go further. I'm just going to describe what we're going to do. So at first, we're just going to touch the nail, just lightly touch. Then you're going to touch and hold a little bit of pressure. And when you get to the point where you can touch all the nails, and we're going to do them one at a time. One touch, he gets a treat. Next touch, he gets a treat. Don't go 1, 2, and then he gets a treat. Just go one touch per treat. So eventually you want to get to the point where you can touch all of them, put your finger on for a good second or two, and he's not pulling away. Then we can swap. Then what we would do is I would touch, then I give him the treat. This means that makes the touch what we call a precursor. I touch your paw, it means I'm going to get a treat. But if he pulls away, he's not ready for that. That's why we go through the first stage of the training wheels, which we can do for all of them. The next stage, what we do is we go like this. Let's see if I can actually go underneath. And I would go underneath his paw and just lift up about 2 inches and then release the treat. I'm just getting used to us reaching under his paws. The back paws are a little bit harder. I'm not going to try to do those in this video, but try to avoid leaning over your dog. That makes it feel uncomfortable, and try to avoid crossing over your body. So when I'm doing it, I'm going to be offering the treat here and touching the lips here. I don't want to be going like this. So eventually I want to be able to go to a point where I scoop his paw up and hold it about maybe 6 inches off the ground. And then I release, and then same situation. I can give the training wheels and lift it up, but really what I wanted to do is lift it up, put it down, give him the treat. And we're going to do that for all the paws until he offers no cutoff signals. For that, that's the second stage. First stage is just touching. Second stage is lifting. But again, the training wheels version go go wherever you need to use it. Always back up. And if one day you're able to pick up the paw, the next day you can't even touch a snail, that's okay. That's not unusual. Just go at whatever pace he can do. So eventually I want to be able to pick up the paw and hold it up and just hold a digit out like that. I'm not trimming, I'm just getting him used to me securing the paw. When we hold dogs' paws, we put them at a disadvantage. So a lot of dogs don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm gonna kind of shuffle on my side because I don't have knees where I can be on the knee. And that jitteriness is him anticipating that I'm gonna grab it. And even if you have a groomer do your dog's nails, this exercise will help make it easier for the groomer. So eventually when I can hold up the digit and he's fine, I'm doing that with all of them, and again, without the training wheels version. Then I hold up the digit and I take the trimmers, and these are the trimmers, and let's say this is the nail. I just grasp it. I don't cut anything. That's a weird, unusual sensation. So I do that, then I release, and I give him the treat. I do that with all the nails. And this is ideally what you'd like to see your dog do. It's so relaxed that I can lay down. Now, when I actually go to snipping it, that's a pretty intense step. So I usually like to use a higher value treat. These are Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver. This is the highest treat I have. But when I'm doing this, I often like to use heat. For dogs, the most important thing when it comes to food is the smell. Temperature is number 2. Taste is a distant third. So I usually go to get, unless the dog has a food allergy, get like a slice of a roast beef that's cut about 1/3 of an inch thick. So you have a big piece, and then I just cut it into slices and cubes. Then I microwave those for about 5 seconds so they have aroma, which is where they get their flavor from. So I do a quick snip, and then I give him 1 or 2 of those cubes. Now this might be 1 snip and then a couple of cubes, and then he might have to go back to just touching and giving that. And when I get the touching, I'm going back to a regular treat. I'm only using the roast beef for the most difficult one to snip. And so you might just get one nail at first, then eventually maybe 1 paw per sitting, then 2 paws, and that's okay. So if you make this a daily part of your routine for about 1 minute, the dog just get used to it. It's a normal ritual, but again, we're not trimming the nails for quite a while. Now, once you get to the point where you trim them all, when you trim the nail is when it is the sharpest. You've put a 90-degree angle on that, and that's where we get the scrape marks on our arms when our dog jumps up. Some people like to use a dremel. A dremel is essentially a drill where the emery fowl's on the side. So you can hold the nail up and hold this to it, and it grinds it down or sands it down. Now, when you do that, it can warm up the nail and it can hurt the dog. So when you do it, you really do it for about 1 to 3 seconds on the Dremel when you're ready. But we're not ready for that. We need to prepare him. So after we got to the point where you can trim it, now if I want to round those hard edges off, I take the Dremel, and the first thing I do is I hold the Dremel. The Dremel I like, by the way, is one on dremel.com. I've gotten them elsewhere where they go through batteries ridiculous. Make sure the battery is chargeable. So what I do is I have it over here, I turn it on and off, and then I give the dog a treat. I want them to get used to the auditory sound of the Dremel without it actually grinding on their nails. So on and off, maybe 1 second, give them a treat. Eventually 2 seconds before I give them a treat, 3 seconds. And after a while, then I hold the Dremel here closer to him, on, off, treat. So I'm getting him used to the sound and getting closer and closer to him. The next stage is I would hold up the digit, take the Dremel where it is off, and just touch the tip of the nail. Take it away, and then give the dog a treat. You want to do that with all the paws and keep doing that stage until the dog is comfortable you touching their nail without it being on, getting a treat. And again, by going slow, the dog is confident what we're doing. The last stage, I actually have it turned on. I hold up the nail and I go zzz, just as short as I can, and then I give the dog sometimes 2 or 3 pieces of that roast beef again, because this is a higher stage. But eventually you can go zzz, 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 yeah, I know. But give them a treat in between each one of these. But you can round it off, so now that nail doesn't have that hard edge. And some people, once you trim the nails, if you do the rounding off, if you do it like once a week, you won't have to trim the nails because you can actually grind it down a little bit and do that. Now, if you walk your dogs on sidewalks a lot, it'll kind of do it for you, but you want to try to keep the nail as close to the quick as you can, and the quick from growing out. If it gets too long, the nail can fracture, need to be amputated. Sometimes it grows back, sometimes it doesn't, but it's usually like a $300 to $500 surgery. So try to get on the habit of doing this daily, especially when they're younger, and keep those nails shorter. And if you use the Dremel, you can actually cause the quick to recede and go back so you can keep those shorter nails. Nothing wrong with them being a little bit longer, but again, the longer they get, the more fragile. So if you practice this often and you go at your dog's pace, watch for those cutoff signals, eventually the dog will lay down like this while you're doing the whole exercise, and they're getting treats after each individual one, and it's not a negative for them. Shadow. right here. You are a lazy dog today. It's like, well, I'm a dog. This is my buddy Shadow, and these are some tips and tricks you can use if you need to trim your dog's nails.